on the district site I just saw.
That GBRA is already gone. It was already voted on. It's gone.
Okay.
Live, Dr. Yeager. We're live.
We are live. Okay, thank you. All right, so new information. We had originally thought we would have been the agenda, but we will not. All right, so welcome to the Policy Committee meeting. It's August 20th, 4:42. We will start the call the meeting to order. Mr. Harris, do you want to see who all is here, please? Take the roll.
I can. Well, Dr. Yeager,
Yes, here.
Dr. Gant,
I saw her a minute ago.
up here. Mr. Davis.
Here.
Do I call non-committee members as well?
Yeah, we can note the guest status of our members elect, and also Ms. Davis is here.
Okay.
Dr. Anderson and, oh, hi, hello, Ms. Hull? It's Ms. Hull, right? Ms.?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Miss. Thanks. Hi.
Okay, so we have a
I'm gonna have to
quorum.
talk to Kamayu about this, but okay.
Oh, don't get me started. Okay. All right. So we've called to order. Did members of the committee have a chance to look at the minutes, and shall we approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes of the last policy committee meeting.
I think you were not there at that meeting, Mr. Davis. Is that correct? We missed you.
God, did I miss one?
I think so, but it's okay. Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I guess we will move to adopt or amend the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor of adopting the agenda? All right,
Aye.
okay. Dr. Thomas, would you like to say anything for the superintendent report?
No, ma'am. I will be quiet in the interest of time. I will say that I know we've had some really good conversations and trainings over the last few days about policy and things relating to policy. And I know that we're all getting with our teams to be revising policy. So I do have, I'm sorry, I said nothing, Dr. Yeager, but one quick question. As we're working on those policies together, if it's one board member and one district person, does that still constitute an open meetings requirement, Attorney Pruitt?
Not so long as that assignment of those two people wasn't made by the board. And I think we were careful to avoid that, so it should be
Okay.
fine.
Okay, so okay. Ms. Palmer had asked me if we needed to post any of those, and I know, okay, I'm good. That was my only thing.
the-
About that work.
Mr. Harris, did you say something? No. Oh, okay.
Can I just, I feel like I'm not the best person to follow all the threads of the emails. So in terms of the assignment that I got from Lawrence, in terms of who I'm meeting with, is that what we're talking about? Is that something that, based on the scheduling of the staff and their time, then we could do that?
You're asking me?
I'm asking whoever, I mean, in terms of being within the law, I know.
Okay, so you're talking about Open Meetings Act. Right.
Right.
So a committee created by the board is subject to the Open Meetings Act. If all you've done is assign topic areas to individual board members and said, get with Lawrence, figure out what staff you need to talk to, let Lawrence set that up for you. That's not a board created committee. That's just you talking with staff. So that's fine.
What if I think Lakeisha and I are both working together with I think it's Mr. Gaskins or his team.
So are we still talking about those? Are we still working off that divvying up that you made back on June 29th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are still board created committees. So they may be 2-person committees, but they're still committees.
Okay, so you've answered.
Wait, are you referencing the norms committee or the policy committees with the board members elect with board members and staff?
I was talking about the policy.
So,
Okay, then I don't know about that.
yeah, so I think where we move, most of the committees is one board member, one person at policy committee, and one staff member, and then a member elect to help out.
Right.
There may be one committee, and maybe we want to fix that, where 2 elected board members are working together. So I can work on, I'm actually about a third to a half of the way through this giant summary of what's going on to pass out to everybody.
Okay.
And school starts here at UGA this week, so I'm kind of juggling too many balls, but I will get that to you very soon, sort of summarizing, and make that a public document as part of a board policy committee chair report, so everyone can see it. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, thanks. My question is, again, I thought I read in the Open Meetings Act, if we set up committees to avoid the Open Committees Act, that's a violation too. So I think we should be careful in these conversations. If you have a plan or a project, I wish you run it by the attorney before we talk about it in this manner, because it sounds to me like from Greg's question, you're changing it so that it doesn't violate the act, and that in itself
No,
is a violation.
Linda, that is not at all. I'm saying that we made.
I'm not saying, I'm saying by the questions and the answers that I'm hearing, and Mike is here to speak to that. So let him do that if you would.
Well, I don't know what we're talking about with these policy assignments. So
Neither do I.
So
So that's a big piece. That's what I'm saying. That whole arrangement needs to be run by you, because I don't know it either. But what I'm hearing causes me concern.
I think from what okay, these policy committees, I guess in a nutshell, are similar to the norms committee in that it's teams of people that were going to be working on things. And for some reason, I thought that the board had been made aware of this.
They were made aware of this. They were not made aware of every little detail, but they were made aware of the process at two board meetings ago when I made a policy chair committee report.
So I'm not sure when people say they don't, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. I do know we have a whole lot of information coming our way, but I think that this is.
The first I heard about this, if I can speak, because it may have been my question that started it, was I was not aware that we had subcommittees, and I think that's how you.
Linda, you've been on the policy committees every time for the last month or two, and we've talked about this process. We presented it. Mr. Harris even made an infographic. We have talked about this as the only way we can possibly get through all of these policies by December.
Okay, and so as I said, my interpretation of what you presented was the policy committee as it being an official thing of the policy committee. I did not interpret it as being subcommittees. And so that's the only question that we have had, again, is about how this is actually being done on our behalf, because the full board is not engaged in this. And if it's a policy committee thing, the question is, what is the authority of the policy committee to, I guess, subordinate its work in that manner, and it not be a public meeting. And that's something I think, again, Mike needs to have those details so that we can know that we're actually doing this according to the Open Meetings Act.
And maybe I've heard, I mean, I'm the first to admit my memory's not 100% perfect on every word I hear. So I may just need to be refreshed on it. But the point is that, we talk about board created, board appointed committees. I don't think we can necessarily avoid something being a board appointed committee just by delegating that appointment to the president of the board or the chair of a committee. But if what we're talking about is just one board member being assigned a task, work on this set of policies, and just go talk to whomever on staff you need to do those policies, then you haven't appointed a committee. You've just said one person go out and find people. We don't know who those people are, don't care who those people are. Just figure it out and bring it back. That's not a committee.
And they're getting help from our members elect who are not formal board members at this point, but they're just engaged guests.
Mr. Pruitt, is it a semantics thing? I'm just wondering if the word subcommittee is the confusing piece, or is it originally said work groups in the doc are made, but I changed it to subcommittee because I didn't want to confuse people with what a work group was.
Yeah, I mean, again, we can't, a committee by any other name, still a committee. It's not who it is. It's not whether it's a staff person or a member elect. The point is, have the actual people been specified, or have you just made an assignment to one individual and left it up to them to go gather information from whomever they need to gather it from? That's the substantive, non-semantic distinction. If you said, Linda, I want you to handle the C policies, and I want you to talk to Lawrence and Meredith about them, and the three of y'all figure this out, you just appointed a committee. But if you said, Linda, I want you to handle the C policies, talk to whoever you need to, and bring this back to us at the next month, that's not a committee.
All right, well, we have appointed committees then by that definition. So, but those committees have not met yet, as far as I know, but we will need to make those meetings public since they're all occurring on Zoom. None of them are occurring in person. So we'll need to make those policy subcommittee meetings public, and we will do so. As far as I know, none of the meetings have had a chance to take place yet. We're still waiting on key district staff members to look over these policies before they meet. Is that correct, Mr. Harris?
That's correct. And I would actually recommend if it does have to be that format, it'd probably be a bigger strain on staff to have to meet publicly every single time we're meeting with one of you all to go through a policy. So I think we may have to change the process by which staff just go through it on their own, and then the policy committee members can review later.
That was kind of why I tried to ask the question, but tried to ask it vaguely. And that was something I referenced. I don't know if it was last night. We're together a lot. I can't remember when I referenced that, but it's going to be difficult as well because they all have to be live, and with having policy committees, like other committee meetings, plus these work groups, plus other meetings, and we only have the ability to go live one meeting at a time. So we've already started running into a good bit of conflict on what that looks like, or even our ability to do so, because different groups are going to be meeting at the same time because it's just so much work to do, but we're not able to go live with multiple meetings.
Well, can I go back and ask why we need this appointment? Why can't it just be, Linda, you handle the C's, Greg, you handle the F's, go find whoever you need to and come back in a month? Then you avoided the whole problem.
I think that's fine. That's kind of was the point, but that was certainly the intent of what we set up, was for one policy member committee to join together with the appropriate staff person to put eyes on these policies and decide which ones we can just review and put a new date on, and which ones are are no longer even being used. They've been sitting there since 1983, and they talk about gobbledygook that's not even relevant. So we needed a staff person involved in that process. And rather than just shove it all over into your lap, I thought we would do it as a team. That was the goal. And we had very intelligent, ready to work members elect to give us a hand. That was the goal.
I think this is similar, actually, Dr. Yeager, that was my thinking with the norms. Just trying to get through as much as we can and as efficiently as we can. And so those were similar intentions. I definitely understand that. I am wondering I know I sent a question and copied the board on it, but if something should change at some point, might it be helpful for us to look at the other option with GSBA helping us with this. But I don't want to hijack your agenda because I know that we have work to do, but I just wanted to throw that out there. If in fact this eventually becomes like a logistical, or either a logistical piece where we may not have the support staff available, or maybe where we don't have the time that we thought we would have.
Okay, fair enough. What I understood, so for I'm going to move to the policy chair committee report at this point and say what I was going to say, which is after learning the other night how to access Assembly and other people's policies, we have 3 times more policies than most districts that I surveyed. And so, and all of these controversial ones that we're handling right now, most districts do not have them at all. This dress code thing we're going to talk about is not even in most board policies. It's micromanagement at the highest possible situation. So I'm okay, and I'd like to make this point at whatever next, I guess this is a public meeting, but at never bigger audience public meeting, is that we really have way too many onerous, unnecessary policies. And so getting rid of them is a really good thing.
I'm
So-
sorry, I never said that before.
Yeah, I know you did. So, you know, and I understand that there's some community pushback on getting rid of some of these things that look like they're important, but honestly, I really, you know, based on looking at other very high functioning school districts, we are just way down in the mud. So I'd like to help us get out of that mud. And I thought we could do it with this fairly expedited technique, but I don't want to get us into trouble. So
Can I get have a suggestion? And this goes to Dr. Thomas. We've just approved a position that no, we haven't either. I'm trying to figure out who, Dr. Thomas, who in the world would have time to, I know Lawrence is doing a whole bunch of stuff, but he's also policy. I'm just trying to figure out, is there a staff person who could?
So we're already doing that, Greg. We've divvied up these
okay.
policies according to giving about 15 to 20 of them to each relevant staff member.
Okay.
And I
In related
understand that
departments, right?
they're in the individual departments, and we were a little bit behind
Okay.
on the one where we've just hired the new person.
Okay.
That group has not really done any work yet, but I know some of the other groups, some of the other heads of department have been working on their 15 to 20 policies. And we realized that the A and C policies, which are more related to board and district level wording and policies, we kind of needed to get together with Dr. Thomas rather than one of her chiefs. And so we've been starting that process. And I think if it's all right with you, rather than engage Dr. Gant because she's so busy, Dr. Dykman has offered to help
Okay.
us look over the C and A policies.
Okay.
And so how are you choosing board members to help? Because Mr. Worthy and I have not been contacted, and we're pretty much retired and have lots of time.
Well, I would be happy to have your help, Linda, if you want to help us with this. I thought of Dr. Dykman simply because she's the superintendent evaluation committee chair. And since C policies have a lot to do with the superintendent qualifications, that was why I reached out to her.
And I'm, again, based on my however many years I was on the policy committee, I think up until this election cycle, I was there. And it sounds like the process that we're about to do is the process that I'm most familiar with. And that is when it was time to review this section's policy, the departments brought the policies back to us with the recommendations on to what to rescind and you know, what we needed to modify to keep in touch with to keep it, you know, to make sure that we were also covering all of the current practices and what was happening now, but also any legislative changes that had come about. And so all of those were with the attorney's review. Is plan going forward to continue to make sure that we're not doing all of this without having done that part of the due diligence.
Linda, that is exactly what we are doing. We're just doing it on 6 different fronts simultaneously because we have a
Okay.
December deadline. That's
That's the-
exactly what we're doing.
Okay, and I thought I heard that this was not a hard thing to be done by December, because this is a lot of work to do by December. But I thought that in one of the reports that we needed to show progress and a plan.
Yeah,
So
well,
I'm not sure why we're trying to push to December to get this done. As long as I've been on the board, we've never been able to do a whole policy
because we
review.
talk a lot. And so if you will forgive me, Ms. Davis, I'm going
I'll
to.
stop talking.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm sorry. I must speak. It seems as though we, listening to Mike, the plan, and I thank you, Tish, for the plan, because I'm very nervous that by doing all this talk, we're not going to get things done. But if, whoever wants to volunteer to be on the committee, allow them to, or work plan group, allow them to do that. And then could we simply come up with that list of staff to suggest
We have,
who
yeah,
are assigned to this? Here's the staff that will probably be able to help you the most. And then that way it's, then that way that person, they have the resource and they can quickly go to that person. And it seems like we'll get it done in the same similar manner without running into legal issues. But I'm getting really concerned about that we're gonna run out of time
okay.
pinpointing, every single thing. I'm getting really, really nervous about that because we are already pretty much into September. But I want to say thank you. I'm glad that Mike cleared it up for us about, the process, because I felt like it was a very good way of doing this. There is a lot of work to be done. But what you laid out, I believe it will be if we could just go ahead and move forward.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Maddox. So I will move us forward on today's agenda, and Lawrence and I will get together, I don't know, very soon in the next few days, and put together a big picture document that assigns individual policy chair committee members to take the lead on a subset of the policy revisions, and they can get with the individual district members. Since none of the meetings have taken place, we can back up and reset this. All right, with your permission, I would like to move on to the old business, which is GBRL employee dress code revision. We had some public comments about accountability or who the arbitrator was. And so the district has cleaned up some of the language for us. So we are still adding the anti-discrimination statement. That's been in there from the very first time we looked at this policy. We added, as Mr. Pruitt recommended, the anti-discrimination. As Ms. Davis recommended, we switched words like decency and decorum to something that's professional. So that's the main reason that this policy was getting moved forward. But then we had public comment about how it's being policed. So scroll down to the bottom, please. We simplified this bottom paragraph. And I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this yet, but this is the recommendation to make this, who makes the decision, who has the authority to make the decision clearer to the public, because that was the concern. So we now have the superintendent or designee has the authority to interpret this dress code, period. So you can allow the principals, if you want, to control their building. And then there's a sentence about that we'll keep about exceptions. But it's much simpler. That previous paragraph was clearly confusing to the folks that commented publicly, and it's much simpler and more direct now that the superintendent is it's where the buck stops, which is true for most of these policies, right? So that's our recommendation. Any comments or discussion or questions?
I was kind of interested in your search that most school districts don't have a dress policy. I thought that was interesting. I'm surprised, but I mean, I thought that was interesting.
That other districts don't have it?
Right.
The only one I could find that had it was Savannah, Chatham. They had one very similar to ours. But most districts that at least that, I haven't figured out how to search all districts yet. I've still been
Right.
kind of
No,
going
I know.
one at a time, but one of the ones, some of the ones that are high functioning, I was able to go see that they don't exist. But, so I heard your point the other night about we should have something. Well, I'm not opposed to having something, but I don't think we need to add any more to this. I would rather
No,
subtract.
no, I don't think you should add anything more.
So it still has the language about profanity, drugs, gangs, discrimination. Is Ms. Hull still on you had a question the other night about what would happen if, do you want to ask that question again? Ms. Hull?
Yeah, sure, I can. I just wanted us to be very intentional and thinking about what would constitute any type of offensive language, since that is a buzzword. Who would be making that interpretation so that it wasn't very arbitrary and cause a lot of problems later. So that is just what I wanted to pose to the committee so that it could be fleshed out. It could be very clear before it was actually implemented so that people were on notice as to what they could expect.
Yes, thank you. And what I spoke with Meredith about this. Meredith, do you want to chime in about how this would work if somebody feels unjustly accused of being disruptive, or what was the other word you used? I'm
Sure,
sorry.
I can speak to how the policy plays out in practice. So as we, I discussed with Dr. Yeager earlier today, and Lawrence kind of backed up as his time as administrator at the Career Academy. This is a conversation that typically happens between a principal and an employee, a staff member. And, there are certain things that every single person can agree on as offensive, and some things are divisive, as you just indicated. There is a policy in place for staff to elevate things should they feel that was inappropriate. They're aware of that. It is through our complaints and discrimination policy. We don't mention it in here because we don't mention it in every other policy. And so if you mention it here but don't mention it in the other ones, it begs the question of, well, do you only have the right to complain about what's in this policy? And it goes back to why a lot of districts don't have this policy to start with, because if it's not creating a disruption or I believe the example I used this morning is if someone were to show up with the Confederate flag on their shirt, generally everyone can agree that is offensive, and that is a generally accepted standard that a lot of people may go with. Whereas, right now most people are not offended by, say, the Canadian flag. And so if they had that flag on their shirt, they would probably not be. So it's not, you can't show any flag ever. It is a conversation. I can also say I reassured Dr. Yeager that in the time I've been here, while there have been conversations that have happened, this is not typically a punitive or a disciplinary procedure. It is a standard that we don't really have a hard time holding teachers to, because they want their classrooms to go smoothly as well. It's not one of those things that has created a problem one way or the other. If you guys, have a specific question or specific example, I'd be happy to look into it a little bit more, but that's really how it's administered day to day. And as it says, the superintendent is the final judgment here in this. Obviously, if you go through this complaints and discrimination policy, there's a whole very formalized process for how that works as well. Does that help answer your question, Ms. Hall?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks, Meredith. Any other questions or comments about this policy revision?
I think it's good.
Okay, can I get a motion then?
I move that we accept it as written, policy GBRL, and move it to the entire board.
A second. And I have a comment during discussion.
You second, I'm sorry.
I Second, Mr. Davis's motion. I do wonder if it's, do we need it? But I do second it moving to the full board, so the full board can determine that.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a vote then? All in favor of moving this to the board? Looks like all in favor. Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is new business, which is the policy and the reg regarding infectious diseases. And this was put up for review because of course COVID is going on, and we wanted to have a chance to just review this policy and make sure it's correct with how we want things to be going on with COVID. I didn't see any changes to the policy. It seems to be general enough. And the reg, we've just added the word COVID, and I also noticed that we've added the word measles. Mr. Harris, did you want to talk about any other aspects to this you've discussed with your team?
I know we actually have Nurse Roark on the line. If
We
there's
do.
anything else she wants to add.
Great. Thank you, Nurse Roark. Do you feel comfortable with how this is written, or do we need to make some more changes?
I just felt like we should add COVID-19 into one of our common infectious diseases, and our guidelines would be to follow DPH protocol as far as return to work dates. And I added measles as well because the state of Georgia last year had 18 measles cases in children, which is significantly up from the previous 3 years when they had 0. And so I figured that while we are updating this policy, it might be good to try and add measles in there as well. And the guidance there would be similar to COVID, which is follow DPH guidelines as far as a return to school.
Great, thank you. And those were the only 2 changes you thought we needed to make. Great, thank you so much, and appreciate all your hard work for the district.
You're welcome.
I've got just one question for Amy. It looks good to me. I'm just, I was around when there was a lot of, how do I put that? Negativity around Ryan White's case back in the 90s. And there's nothing in here that would resurrect some of the fears of that period, is there? In fact, it seems to do just the opposite.
So in my review of some of the other districts, again, now that I've figured out how to do it, there's a lot of very old policies that talk a lot about HIV.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that are still sitting out there. So I was pleased about our policy given.
Yeah, that was just a terrible time, and teachers were, demanding that they know and that type of thing. And even though it was not classified, I mean, HIV would not be classified as a contagious disease in the way that we're defining this. Am I correct?
Well, I think it is probably on in the category. No, I don't know. That's not my field. So, Nurse Roark, do you have a comment?
Well, HIV is contagious through bodily fluids, unlike some of these others that are listed, which is more respiratory, airborne, droplet, that sort of thing. So really, I think that the general bloodborne pathogen precautions, the universal standards cover all necessary HIV.
Yeah, the bloodborne stuff in the policy, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's in there, it's just not explicitly called out. Okay, can we move on? Go ahead.
Yeah, now I'm getting more confused than ever, but just because a student or has HIV does not mean that there would be particular protocols put in place, where there's information being distributed and all these things kick into play.
Correct, because we operate under universal precautions at all times, which would protect employees and staff and other children from an infection like HIV.
Okay.
Any other questions?
But this is the regs, right, Dr. Yeager?
This part is the reg. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I thought so. I didn't want to jump over to policy to go up and down. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you, Nurse Rourke. Can I have a motion, please,
So moved.
to
Second.
move this forward to the board? Okay, all in favor of moving this forward to the board? And so number 1 and number 2 together. Can we vote on together? So the policy JGCC, which is just being reviewed, we're not making any changes, and it's reg, which has 2 lines added. Okay. All in favor? I'm sorry, did I see everybody? Thank you. All right. Okay, so CEA. So a few weeks ago, Mr. Harris and I put CEA and CB on here because they were called out specifically in the Cogni report. Since then, we have talked quite a bit about how to tackle the C policies. But we do have so we could put these away. We put these off until we have formed that committee. Dr. Thomas, I'm going to ask your opinion here, since they've gone to legal review. Mr. Pruitt gave us his opinion on these 2 policies. So let's look at them, and I'm open to tabling, or not tabling, I always use that word wrong, postponing discussion of them until the committee has met and discussed them with Dr. Thomas. But if we can make a quick decision here based on the legal review, I'm good with that as well. Most districts that I could find do not have a CEA. Because it's state law. So can we pull up CEA, please, Angela? So this policy is 2 sentences. Superintendent shall meet all requirements as may be established by the State Department of Education for his or her position, period. In addition, the superintendent shall be a person of good moral character and have never been convicted of any crime involving moral turpitude. So this policy was written in 1987. I'm not even sure what the legal definition of moral turpitude is anymore. And as I said, nobody else that I could find has this CEA on their books. So I believe Mr. Pruitt, legal compliance and suggestions, this policy is not illegal, but it, as noted, is unnecessary. So we could simply rescind this policy. Would be fine with me.
That's what I would suggest. I mean, the moral turpitude is, I think it's still for anybody licensed in the state of Georgia. I still think they use that term.
So Meredith is nodding her head. Thank you, Meredith.
So, I mean,
ESC prevents you from getting a license if you've ever been convicted of what they consider to be a crime of moral turpitude. And if you saw the list, you would realize that you are correct. It is outdated.
so I would suggest that this disappear.
Is that a motion?
Yes, it's a motion.
Okay, second.
Mr. Pruitt, am I reading your words appropriately here, that you would recommend rescinding this policy?
Strongly and urgently.
Ms.
Second.
Dr. Gant, Dr. Gant, you had a hand up?
Oh, no, I didn't mean to if I did.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, I think we have a motion to rescind CEA. All in favor? Did we get a second? Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
We've got unanimous in favor to move this to the board to rescind. So Angela, can you do that for us? Thank you. All right, CB also is fairly short, I think. no, this one is, oh yeah, this one is the long one, sorry. All right, very, very long 1987 jargon speak, which is, it's actually very interesting to read. However, the legal opinion is it does not reflect the current wording of the Professional Standards Commission Educator Code of Ethics. Mr. Harris, you were going to do a little research for us this afternoon. Were you able to do that?
I did. So I found out where it came from. It actually came from the 1986. The entire language is actually the same language from the 1986 American Association of School Administrators, which we now know as the AASA School Superintendents Association. So they changed their name back in the 1990s or early 80s. So this was actually the exact text from the 1986 handbook around administrative personnel ethics. So it was actually a fun time kind of doing some deep diving into who still has this language. 2 districts in Ohio and then 1 in Illinois, but I could not find it elsewhere. So yeah, and then they actually don't have it in their handbook anymore, so I couldn't find it in the AASA's handbook because it just doesn't exist. So or their new version, it doesn't at least.
So is there a reasonable substitute for this? What are the Professional Educator Code of Ethics that we want to substitute, or do we just want to, it seems like we might not be in a climate where totally rescinding superintendent ethics or administrative ethics is going to be well received. Is there something we could substitute that's more modern?
Is this also included in the professional standards? Like should we, that person who is an administrator would be certified? I think, because this may be a strange question, but superintendents and administrative people, well, not all administrators are necessarily certified though, right?
Not all of them are, but in this school district, even 2 people in HR, myself included, who is not as administrator, have a certificate from the PSC and can get administrative certificates. So we have to follow the Educator Code of Ethics, even if we're not teachers.
So can we put that sentence in? Is it true that we have a policy in this district that most of our administrators, if not all of our administrators, have the PSC certificate?
We don't require them all to. It's just that we took it upon ourselves to get them.
Okay.
Because it's a good idea. That may be something that you eventually want to look at. I'm not sure. But maybe you could just say administrators, as applicable, will follow the Georgia Educator Code of Ethics. We're held to the same ethics that the teachers and anyone with a certificate are if we are also, to use their word, certificated. It's not my word.
So administrators, and you put the little hedge in there, as applicable. Maybe do we need that? Shall be.
Well, because not all of them, I mean, are required to have a certificate. But anyone with a certificate from the PSC is held to the standards of their Educator Code of Ethics. And your, so any of your jobs that require a teaching certificate would have that. So that's most of your leadership.
So what, and obviously I'm not interested in names, but how would someone be hired without PSC certification? I'm just trying to understand.
Well, I would be, because it was not required in HR, and no school district really requires it in HR. It's just that both Luke and myself have taken it upon ourselves to hold ourselves to that higher standard.
And there are other departments that kind of fall in that same, maybe the financial and different departments.
That's right. That's right. Your CFO would probably not have a certificate, say, for example.
And I'm happy to weigh in because I don't mind, So when I was CEO of the Career Academy, I wasn't certified, but the Career Academy CEO is kind of a different position. So we work with business and industry and instruction. So it's kind of a dual side. So I wasn't required to be certified, but I did get my certification just because it's, like Meredith said, good practice. And you do have to go through the ethics assessment to get that certification.
Could we say that maybe that's what you were saying, Tish, is that all administrative staff would be held to that level, whether or not they had the certification or not?
Well, not knowing exactly what that level is, I'm a little challenged to say that, but
I mean, the PS, in other words, even if they don't have the certification through the PSC, they are being still held to the standards of the PSC.
oh, I see. Yeah.
It's just like, I don't live in Georgia, but I'm still have to abide by Georgia law, even though, I may not live in Georgia, that type of thing.
Well, I think if I hear you correctly, you're suggesting that the certification offers us a valuable framework for ethics, educator ethics and administrative ethics, but whether the person has gone through the certification or not is not necessarily required,
Right.
but they'll be held to those standards.
They would be handled those. Meredith, is
And
that?
Dr. Thomas, you're nodding. Are you approving?
That would be my understanding of that as well.
Okay, so we will.
Well, I mean, if Mike agrees and Meredith agrees, that would be helpful.
I would agree that when I make a recommendation on something, it obviously would go to Lynn and to Dr. Thomas, but my standard usually goes back to the educator code of ethics in some way.
So
I don't know that you want to, if you're more comfortable, looking more into it and seeing if you're fine with that, but the educator code of ethics is pretty broad. It talks about things like professionalism. It talks about not commingling funds, very broad things that we already have in place anyway. And we train every staff member annually on the educator code of ethics. So they are trained that is what is expected. And classified and certified staff receive that training annually.
okay, so I guess the question is, do we just cite that code, or do we do what we've done in some other places, which is copy and paste it in, or do we allow it to modify over time and just
They
cite
do
it?
modify it, and they are actually looking at it right now. So to go back,
Okay.
to what you've said in the past, I wouldn't copy and paste it in. If you want to reference it in some way,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be harmful, but I would not copy and paste it in because it was changed as recently as a year ago, just to keep the wording current.
Okay, I don't want somebody to come back to us in 2035 and say, God darn it, that Jaeger, why did she paste that in there? So,
So can I,
okay,
so
yes.
can I'd like to make a proposal that we do that.
Okay,
Just cite, the ethics of the PSC, and that the wording be, that's the intent of this committee, and that the wording can be tweaked by Dr. Thomas, Chair, Meredith,
okay,
the attorney, so that it can be put out with board approval for public comment in the September meeting. But that's the intent of this committee, to move it forward with
Okay.
that input.
okay. That's a good idea, Greg. Then we don't have to wordsmith it right now. Thank you. That's a great idea. Mr. Harris, are you willing to lead that effort?
I'm
Would
putting
you
the
be
words in the chat.
Or Mr. Pruitt? All right, Mr. Pruitt's got it.
For giving us the words. Thank you, Mike.
All administrative personnel, even if not certified by the Professional Standards Commission, shall observe the standards set forth in the Educator Code of Ethics.
That's it. Thank you.
The second
Think
two
it's big
sentence
bucks.
one. Hey,
Why you get big?
It ain't that hard.
It is for some of us.
Ms. Tillman has already moved it. I see her coming in.
All right, thank you.
Mike is
so
going to
much.
review and revise all of our policies. for us. Thank you, Mike.
I could.
Check that off.
You could. All right, so it's 5:30. I believe we have a little bit time left. Meredith, Ms. Paget, if you would help us with EGAG, since I know we put you on the hot seat to handle that one tonight. So do we need to take a vote? Sorry, I jumped ahead. Do we take a vote on the lettering or the wording of CB?
so can I have oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Davis.
Were you taking out the other stuff?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
So, yeah, Angela, we can delete all the other. Although it is lovely language. Historically lovely. All right. All right, can I have a motion to move this forward, please?
So moved.
A
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we lose Dr. Gant?
Here, aye.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, moving on to another surprise for Ms. Paget. Sorry about this. I thank
That's
you
okay.
for helping us out with this one again. This was another one that was highlighted in the Cognia report as incredibly bad. And so again, in response to the Cognia report, we are trying to tackle these really bad ones. And even though it's about unemployment compensation, which is a very hot topic right now, we are not responding to COVID. We are responding to Cognia in our efforts to get this one updated.
And I think I can help you with that, Dr. Yeager. I've done a little research since we talked this morning.
Thank you.
Into it, I took an initial glance at it. Mike Pruitt recommended rescinding this. Unemployment is one of those things. I think I can make you guys feel good about either, following that recommendation or just saying we follow the law if you choose to. But unemployment is one of those things where we don't have discretion. We do what they tell us to do, period. And that changes from time to time. So we really don't need to be in the business of saying, this is how we administer unemployment. And I can give you a current, very relevant to today's example. In this current situation that we're in, employers are to file on behalf of the employees for the state of Georgia. That's not normally there, but it's in place right now. And so we are doing that for anyone who has been impacted by anything and would do that. So if we had a policy that didn't discuss us doing that, it would be not right. And so I just, we're going to follow the law. This is one of those things that there's very specific guidance on, and you don't really have any say in it. And so us having a policy just really sets us up to be wrong. There's nothing in this that's necessary or relevant. And I believe Mike said it's one of the policies that's not required. I did express to Dr. Yeager that with taking the temperature of the community right now, I do recognize that that's probably likely to incite people being concerned, feeling that something with unemployment is going away. So if you guys choose to put words in saying that you keep the policy, I understand that as well. Nothing that we do would be changed by this policy going away, because we can't choose to follow or not follow the rules set forth based on policy existing or not existing, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I've got a quick suggestion. First off is that we rescind the policy. Secondly, if we could have, like we talked about, the attorney explanation just in a sentence or two when we post it, explaining why it's being rescinded. In fact, I would do that to any policy that we rescind, just a short blurb, not necessary, outdated, or whatever. And that I think we agreed to do that as a matter of course. So
yeah, we have.
That is my proposal, is that we rescind this policy with an explanation when it goes to be posted.
Yeah, so Ms. Tillman and I had this conversation this morning. She's agreed that all of the information that's in the board docs policy at the time of the policy committee meeting will follow these all the way through the entire process. So whatever we add here in terms of an explanation why we do what we do, it will stay with the policy throughout until it's acted on.
Thank you. I would really appreciate that. It would help my position a lot to have that go with it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why that wasn't happening. I think
I don't know.
Yeah, we were trying to remember, Angela was trying to remember what happened, and it's been a while since we did that. So Okay. Do we
There's a
have any
motion.
more questions or comments? There's a motion on the floor. Thank you. Is there a second, or are there any other comments about this question?
May have some follow-up comments or questions, but I don't have them now. And I do support this going before the full board. I'm trying to work out what they are, but
Would you be more comfortable with the simple sentence saying that we are unemployment policy or unemployment compensation is outside the realm of HR and we follow follow state law or something along those lines?
maybe, I'm not sure, but we don't have to resolve it right now. Just maybe as the full board discusses, and I'll take another look and try to figure out if I have any questions, and that way I can just follow up with you and Mr. Pruitt or policy.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I don't want, Lakeisha, I don't want you to feel rushed to do this. I mean, I'm, what I'm hoping is that, because our meetings are so long, our general meetings, just trying to, any questions people have, but, I mean, if you think you have questions, I'd rather put this somewhere else next month.
I'll be sure to ask them before our meeting so that
Okay.
so that I can understand it as I go to the meeting. More so, I'm just thinking along the lines, I always thought that there was a step for the employer and that there was discretion with the employer when a person applies for unemployment. And so that may just be an error in how I'm thinking. So I need to go back and figure out where I got that from. And I don't even know that the policy speaks directly to that. In fact, the policy is sort of confusing and doesn't say much, but I'm just saying I may have follow-up questions, but I do support it, support this act moving forward.
So you're right, Dr. Gant. I mean, so when somebody applies for unemployment, the Labor Department sends HR a form to fill out for the reasons for termination, to determine just factual background to determine if the person's entitled to it or not. But that's not, I mean, that's that's state law. That's just how it works. It's nothing we need to address in policy to make that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this one was written in 1979 and last revised in 2002. So it's 20 years old.
Yeah, and I think just to answer, I think where Lakeisha's going with this and following up on what Mike said, having been unemployed more times than I can count, what the employer does, if the employer says he was fired with cause, then there's an appeal process, but it's through the unemployment office. It's not through the employer. So you would have a hearing at the unemployment office in which the company or the school district would present their case as to why this person was terminated. And then the employee who was terminated would then they could even have an attorney there saying, this is why it was discrimination. This is why it was done illegally. But that's all under the auspices of the employment office.
I don't know why people don't listen to you more, Greg.
Nothing's in person anymore. They've been via phone for a very long time unless they're requested to be. So COVID didn't change that. But we have no control over that process. As Mike said, they send us a form that has very specific questions. We answer those specific questions. Then they, from the Georgia Department of Labor in Atlanta, then make a determination based on that. And we are following their process to the letter, to the point that we can't even change the phone number they call for the hearing. We have no flexibility. We follow their guidance.
I used to be a labor organizer back in the day.
Okay. Well, all right. So can I, so what I'm hearing is that we will rescind this policy entirely and send it up to the board. And the board have a conversation. Dr. Gant, you can ask more questions. We may decide to add a sentence back pointing out that we follow state law, but I'm happy to rescind and try to defend that to the board at the next meeting. Mr. Pruitt, any more comments? You look like you're about to burst.
Oh, no, I'm good. No, Greg stole my thunder. I defer to him.
All right. Can I have a motion? I keep losing track of when we took a motion or not.
So moved that this be rescinded.
Okay.
E.g. A.g.
Dr. Matt,
Second,
thank you. All in favor? All right. Moving on to the last pair. No, sorry, there are two policies. Meredith, I'll get it right eventually. All right, so this one, GCRA, which I swear I've seen before, but I understand that we saw GBRA before, and for whatever reason, we decided not to send this one up beside it. So it was the same explanation and the same reasoning, except that this is classified personnel and the other one was certified.
I think we ran out of time. I think that was the only reason it didn't go up at this. We had 20 HR policies to get through, and we went as far as we could go. For the exact same reason that we got rid of the other one, the wording is pretty much identical. As Mike said, it's just not necessary and actually in a few places wrong. And we don't need this.
And just a reminder, this is the fitness for duty policy. Mr. Pruitt, do you want to chime in again? You have such a good explanation of this one. I keep writing it down
Well,
and then
thank you. I'll
I forget it immediately.
So although it says fitness for duty, it actually talks about mental health and
Right, mental health. Thank you.
which fitness for duty is an FMLA concept. Mental health is an ADA concept. We only single employees out for mental health concerns if we have reason to believe they are a direct threat to themselves or others. And it's a very sensitive topic. It's not one we fortunately have to deal with very often. And when we do, a whole lot of people talk about how we're going to go about it, including me, before we take action. So it's not something you can put in a policy, and what we have is wrong.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments about this one? This is the one we had the public comment about why are we removing fitness for duty during a pandemic, but I think if I can just remember Mr. Pruitt's good explanation, it will go through.
But also it's going to be posted with that explanation too.
Correct.
So I move that policy GCRA be rescinded.
second,
All in favor? All right. The last one is not a reg of GCRA, even though it looks like it. It's just GCRA 1. And I did check, Meredith, this morning. I went to other districts and they also have GCRA 1. I don't know why, but they do. It's not just us. This is the drug screening of bus drivers. And it was last revised in 2002. And can you scroll down to show, let's see, well, the legal interpretation was we want to, of course, keep this policy.
It's required.
It's required. And we are adding a sentence or adding a section.
We're adding a section since that last date forever and a day ago, I'm guessing. OCGA 20-2-1211 requires those very specific things be in the policy. And so I have added those numbered items right there to make us compliant with the OCGA requirement. If y'all have questions about them, I'll be happy to answer, but that's really exactly where it came from, is that requirement.
Right out of the statute, that's right.
Just point of information, Meredith, and I think I'm really dating myself. At one time when I was teaching, I would drive students in a van to conferences and that type of thing. Is that even allowed anymore?
No. Much to my dismay.
Yeah. Okay.
I would, and honestly, even if we did, I would discourage people individually against it, just because you open yourself up to so much personal liability in today's society. I want to encourage people to be above question.
But it's
Came up a
not,
few years ago when Ted Gilbert was still here, and Ted and I talked to GSBA about it, our risk management coverage carrier. And yeah, I mean, they just have such serious concerns, and they're well grounded. And a lot of time, I mean, it's one of those things where sort of extreme circumstances prevent what could be a good, just a good Samaritan act in 99% of the cases. But the dangers are just so high. GSBA just almost takes the firm stance. We just won't let you do that.
so is it safe to say that Clark County policy says you must be a certified bus driver to transport children from point A to point B? Is that, am I right?
We
Or is that-
require the kids to be on a school bus, which then inherently requires a CDL. So some of our teachers at the middle schools and even I guess at the high schools have gone and gotten their CDL license so that they can drive our school buses to transport students to and from. I think BHL even has a bus that they would keep that was like an activity bus. I get it with Dr. Yeager. It was so hard for me because I mean, this is 30 years for me and I'm used to transporting kids, but it would be so frustrating to have to get a bus to take two
Three
kids perform at something, at UGA, or two kids to a spelling bee. So we did start working that out where they picked up at every school. So at least we had more kids from one side of town, because when you're just used to being able to get it done. But now, Greg, Mr. Davis, to your question, you do have people who have gotten their CDL licenses.
Okay. So they can, so a debate coach could get that license and would certainly fall under this policy, but could get that license and drive a debate team to Valdosta State, if that's the way.
They'd have to be in a bus, though. They can't drive their own
No,
car.
in a bus, but it could be one of the smaller buses, but could do that to save money.
So the
And
other
there's
option.
nothing that prevents them from doing that in this policy.
Right.
Okay.
They can also get a charter bus. There's a list of certified charter buses for field trips that I looked into a couple of years ago when I was doing science field trips for Cedar Shoals. All right, so I think we are at the end of the new business. We have a moment of discussion. Is there any more discussion?
We have to vote, yeah.
Oh, we have to vote. I'm sorry. Thank you. Is there a motion for this policy?
I move that we move GCRA 1 to the entire board for a vote.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of moving this to the board as amended or as revised? All right, unanimous. Thank you very much. So we have any other discussion, Ms. Davis? I apologize for cutting you off. I was not sure we would make it through our agenda today. So if you have additional questions, I would open the floor for those now.
No, ma'am. Thank you so very much.
And we've lost Dr. Anderson. Ms. Hall, did you have any other questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Stay safe.
You too.
Good night.
The weather's getting bad. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Happy birthday, Tawanda, Dr. Maddox.
Oh, happy birthday. Awesome.
I meant to say that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
How's your fundraiser going? Oh, we should have gotten off the live meeting.
But yeah, but it's going well. Thank you.
All right. I guess we
See
went.
y'all later.
Did Harold get us off live?